Over the last several years, there has been a tremendous amount of hype and news and chatter about the economic opportunities in Utah. There was just another report that came out saying that Utah is the #1 place for business startups. And right in the heart of all of this business activity is a city called Saratoga Springs, Utah. Anybody that's considering a move into Utah, especially in the business startup, tech, medical, education industries, has probably thought about Saratoga Springs, Utah. In this video, I'm going to give you an inside look at the good, the bad, and the ugly about Saratoga Springs. There's some beautiful things, some things that I love about the city. There's also some cons that you might want to be aware of as you're considering a move to Saratoga. Hi, I'm Micah Olson. I am your Utah County YouTubing real estate expert. I make videos like this for people like you so that you can get to know the cities and areas around in Utah. So if you're into that kind of thing, like and subscribe. I would love to keep you updated on all the new developments and what it's like to live in the various cities in Utah County. Let's start with a couple of the things that I really don't like about Saratoga Springs. Number one is the rush hour commute times. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't like LA or San Francisco or Phoenix, during rush hour where a normal half-hour drive might take you an hour. There will be extra traffic. You will have to occasionally wait a few cycles of a stoplight. And that can be a little bit annoying, but it's probably not as bad as some places if you're coming from a major city. If you're coming from a smaller town or a more rural setting, you might not like the rush hour traffic. On that same transportation note, there's not really a lot of public transportation options in Saratoga Springs. There's a few buses that go here or there. You have access to Front Runner that can bring you up to Salt Lake and into the airport and things like that, but you're not really going to get around from place to place within the city using public transportation. However, that's kind of the case with most cities in Utah. The two other kind of bad things about Saratoga that I want to chat about, it'll depend on what exactly you're looking for. There's not really a lot of huge economic centers in Saratoga Springs. However, a 10-minute drive down the road puts you right at the doorstep of Silicon Slopes. You're probably a 15 to 20-minute drive into the Provo-Orem area, which has a lot of industry and education and medical care. And during good traffic, you're an easy half-hour drive to the Salt Lake International Airport, to downtown Salt Lake. There's also a lot of tech startups and high-tech industry and medical industry about 10 minutes to the north in South Jordan. So while you don't have a lot of great economic opportunity right in Saratoga Springs, all of the surrounding areas do. And kind of the same idea with healthcare. There's not a lot of major high-tech, highly specialized medical facilities right in Saratoga Springs. However, there's a big medical campus that was just being built and still has elements that are under construction. Maybe 5 minutes to the north, you have Utah Valley Hospital just about 20-25 minutes to the south. You have Primary Children's Hospital up to the north at probably 30 to 40 minutes depending on traffic time. So there are a lot of great medical options around, but just not technically right in Saratoga Springs. Let's talk about one more thing that I really don't love, but again, this is something that you're going to find in a lot of cities. There's very high development pressure right now in Saratoga Springs. A lot of people want to be here. There's new construction happening, there's new roads going in, new residential, commercial, lots of things going on. And so you're going to be driving behind trucks on roads sometimes. There's going to be road closures and new things opening up and getting built. That's just kind of part of life, really anywhere, all the way from Santaquin down south, probably up to Kaysville up in the north. There's a lot of people building and moving to and wanting to do things in Utah. So you will have some development pressure. There are some cities in Utah County, if you just don't want to live in the construction zone, there's cities that are fully built out that you could look at. Linden, Pleasant Grove, Orem is getting close to being built out. So there's places you can go to avoid that, but those cities come with their pros and cons also. Let's talk about what I really love about Saratoga Springs. It is a beautiful city. Most of Saratoga Springs is relatively new compared to other cities in Utah. You know, you've got Provo is kind of getting to be right at the heart of a lot of things. There's a ton of houses there that were built in 1905 and 1920 and 1950s, and older neighborhood styles with the thin sidewalks or no sidewalks, older homes, and it's not bad, it's just different. Saratoga Springs, you know, some of the first developments that you would see out in this area was Harvest Hills in North Saratoga Springs, a master plan community with walking trails and park strips and, you know, just well thought out. And then you go down south and you got the big golf course gated community down there and lakefront access. Up on the hill, Beacon Hill and other places, they started building some very well thought out developments in the 2000s, you know, 2005, 2010. And so the feel of the area, it flows better, there's better traffic control in the area, houses are newer, there's parks and bigger sidewalks, but it's not so new that there's no big trees. You know, some cities, there's been some criticism out in Eagle Mountain City Center and you know, Harriman, Utah, where a lot of the development is so new that there's just no big trees. And I hear a lot of people, especially coming from California or from the East Coast, you know, that say, I just wish there were some trees. So Saratoga has some very mature landscaping and parks and things, and yet it's new enough that it just has a feel of a planned development, which is really a plus. But with all of that, you're not extremely close to a lot of mountainous outdoor recreation. Of course, there's jogging trails and biking paths and parks and things that you can do in Saratoga, but you're not right by the ski resorts, you're not right by the canyons, you're not right by, you know, areas for trail running and things like that, but they're not that far away. Now, a couple of years ago, I would have listed this next one as a con because literally, you know, when we started going out to that area, there was like one small grocery store and a couple of little, you know, ma and pa type shops, and there was just nothing out there. You were driving all the way into American Fork to do any kind of real shopping. Now there's a Costco, there's a Walmart, there's tons of restaurants, there's movie theaters and bowling alleys and lots going on in the area. So the amenities are great. I will say a slight caveat to that. There's not really anything I would consider fine dining. There are nice restaurants, but if you're looking for a really good steak or Italian dinner or something, you're probably going to head about 15 to 20 minutes north to get that, or possibly down into Provo. There's a few kind of bespoke restaurants that are pretty cool. In general, the best thing about Saratoga Springs is just the beauty and the organization and the flow of the city without a lot of the big stuff right in it. You know, the commercial centers are just outside, medical centers are just outside, and so you're kind of this little pocket community with access to everything, but not necessarily super noisy and busy. In my book, that's a big plus. Let's talk for a minute about some things that a lot of people care about: education and crime rates and affordability. In general, Utah is slightly less affordable than the national average. Saratoga Springs is actually slightly less affordable than the Utah average, so it's a little bit less affordable than other areas around the country, with the exception of big cities. I mean, if you're coming from Atlanta, Phoenix, San Jose, you know, places that we've already talked about, Utah's going to feel very affordable, and so will Saratoga Springs, but it is a little bit less affordable than the national average. The cost of healthcare is about on par with the national average. The cost of groceries is actually a little bit lower than the national average. And that's the same for utilities. Water, power, natural gas are all lower than the national average, which is awesome. The big thing that drives the cost of living higher than the national average is housing. We've had a big housing boom recently. Homes do cost a little bit more, and that's kind of on par with the economy here. People can make more money here than they can in other areas around the country. Let's talk about education. You don't have any major universities that are right here. You've got University of Utah is about 30 to 45 minutes to the north. You've got BYU is probably 25, 30 minutes to the south. Utah Valley University is probably 20 minutes to the south. All of those are great educational institutions. As far as secondary education and elementary education, Saratoga Springs, if you look at great schools, they get a lot of 8 out of 10 schools. So that's not bad. I mean, years ago, Utah never would get above a 6 out of 10, but so 8 out of 10 is good. There are surrounding cities, if education is extremely important to you, there are cities around that have a lot of great private and charter schools and dual immersion schools with French and Chinese. And so there are surrounding cities that rank better. They get 9s out of 10s on the great schools rankings. But Saratoga's pretty good. 8 out of 10 isn't bad. And with all of the new growth, you get a lot of new schools that start being built, and typically the educational ratings will come up as development growth occurs. As for crime rates, Saratoga Springs, like most cities in Utah, is extremely low. Now, Saratoga is not the lowest city in Utah, but it's not bad. The national average for violent crime per 1,000 is 4, so 4 out of 1,000. In Saratoga Springs, the average is 1.36, so much lower, almost a quarter of what the national average is. Now, there's cities around Saratoga Springs where the average is less than 1, 0.96 and 0.98, but really there's not a huge difference. I mean, that can be 1 or 2 sporadic events that have happened and it throws your average off for a year. In general, Saratoga Springs is an excellent city for safety. Let's talk about another thing that's a con, in my opinion. A lot of Utah cities have a very community feeling. Lots of events going on. The people get together to do service and community cleanups, and lots of pride in the community. Saratoga Springs has a few community things. There's not a tight-knit, cohesive, I'm from Saratoga Springs type of a feel there. And that could be because the city is very long and stretched out. You've kind of got the north area of Saratoga Springs and then a bunch of commercial stuff, and it's a fairly narrow strip. And then on the south, you've got like a gated golf course community and some new homes going in. Maybe because it's stretched out along Utah Lake and along the Jordan River, maybe that's one of the reasons, is you just don't have these huge community feels. But let's talk about the couple of little things that they have. I think every city in Utah has some kind of an Easter egg hunt. I mean, Saratoga Springs does that. They have what you call splash days, and it's kind of a little carnival feel, which is nice, but again, not super cohesive. They have the typical food truck nights that you would expect anywhere in Utah County. And then they have a fall festival, which is pretty cool. They have a train that you can ride around, like a miniature train, but you ride around in it. And they kind of do the guilt trip, like this is free, but we would love a donation. But it's kind of a cool little feel for that. But that's about it. There's not really much else going on that makes Saratoga Springs a tight-knit community. So that's it. If you are a resident of Saratoga Springs, let me know what you love and what you don't love. I'd love to see that in the comments. If you're thinking about a move to Utah County and you want more information, or you want some video tours of houses or new home developments or things like that, just post a comment, contact me, set a Calendly appointment. All of my information is very accessible. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have more information coming out soon.